5 ans après le désastre de l'ouragan Katrina qui a dévasté une grande partie de la Louisiane, l'explosion d'une plateforme pétrolière dans le golfe du Mexique crée une marée noire sans précédent qui s'étale sur la côte de l'État et apparaît comme une autre grande menace. Toute la côte de la Louisiane est en état de panique face aux événements, principalement les Houma, un peuple amérindien de l'État qui vit d'une culture et d'une tradition qui lui est unique.
The Houma were originally settled around Baton Rouge, Red Stick. It was actually a boundary marker between the Houma and the Bayous tribe. And we eventually started settling further and further south and to sort of settle into the southern parts of Louisiana.
Ça fait, on a rentré dans le territoire nommé La Fouche. Et il y avait La Fouche intérieure aussi. Et ça, c'était plus moi qui est devenu, dans 1834, la paroisse Terrebonne.
The culture, the lifestyle of the Houma is very unique. Of course, like I said, most of the things that we eat are on the water. It's a lot easier for us to catch our food out of the backyard than go to, Houma or so and go grocery shopping, but we still have to do that. We were gardeners, but we were also healers. And of course, we also are accustomed to using everything, just like as we use the plants that are on for healing, we use them for decoration. I think that's something very distinct about our people, is that we've always been, I think as Indian people, as Native people anyhow, we're taught to utilize the land for our own needs, but not to abuse it. A lot of our people, 20, 30 years ago, that's all they did was make a living on the water. They were fishermen, they worked with the crabs, they learned how to harvest oysters, they learned how to fish and sell those things. So for the most part, that's what our people have done for many, many generations. But now the younger generations are working in the oil industry. So it's sort of, they're managing to stay on the water by working on a more fruitful industry, because it's very hard to support a family as a fisherman in today's world. My last name is Billiot. Last names like Gregoire and Parfait and Verdun are all very French last names directly from France. When our family started going to public school systems, it was very looked down upon for them to speak French. So it was easier for them to start teaching their kids English. So for me, for instance, my family, they never spoke directly French to me. They just spoke, my mother and father spoke to each other in French. So the people, in the 60s and 70s, right now predominantly speak French. We're working right now to sort of include some French immersion programs in some of our local communities, because that's a big gap that's starting to happen, is that we are eventually going to lose our language.
C'est le 20 avril 2010 que la plateforme pétrolière Deepwater Horizon de la compagnie British Petroleum explose dans le golfe du Mexique. L'explosion cause une importante fuite de pétrole qui s'étale sur une énorme surface de la côte sud-est américaine.
It was a pretty sad day because, lots of men lost their lives.
Tout a peur que ça va arriver encore.
Malgré toutes les mesures que BP et le gouvernement américain ont pu prendre pour stopper la fuite, le pétrole a tout de même atteint les côtes de la Louisiane pour s'étendre sur les plages et dans les bayous. Les effets semblent avoir été néfastes pour le peuple Houma qui vit sur la côte de la Louisiane. Les rumeurs ont mentionné la perte d'une culture, d'une langue et même d'un peuple. Mais est-ce vraiment ce qui leur est arrivé?
There were no immediate effects because there was no oil washing up on our bayous. We couldn't look out. I can look out my window and still see the bayou just as I did on that day. So the immediate effects, as people might think, here in Dulac, it didn't affect. A lot of people around me, they were affected because, you know, people who, their hours were cut because of the moratorium. So the oil industry was put on hold. And so for our community, if the seafood industry is put on hold and the oil industry is put on hold, you have a lot of people who are in need. And then the younger people saw it as an opportunity for jobs.
Plein a décidé premier pour aller à l'est pour donner la main. C'était premier, la terre blonde était droite là, tous ces bateaux a parti pour donner la main. Et ça fait un bon job. Mais là, quand lui a commencé à avancer plus près de nous, on était bien tracassé parce qu'on n'avait pas de bateau pour se mettre à les battre pour nous autres. Mais ça restait là tout le temps, c'était l'ouvrage bien difficile, mais ça avait le courage de travailler des grandes heures pour ne pas arrêter.
A lot of the older men who, I think there was some frustration at the beginning with some of the older fishermen because they weren't too sure how their seasons were going to work. So did we have a closed season? Did we have an open season? So there was so much frustration in communication. And so I think there was a big gap of we don't know what's going to happen with the older generation. And the younger people probably saw it as a way, okay, well, you know, if this is going to happen, we might as well be the ones that are going to do the work instead of people. And that was a big concern, that people were coming from all over to do the work that our local people could do. So, and a lot of the older people weren't necessarily as concerned about the environmental effects, probably, as like some of us like younger people who think the long-term environmental effects are going to be the ones we have to really worry about for our own health. And so I think there's probably a gap there, but then there's still some older people who probably also see some of those too. I saw there was a lot of people coming around and wanting to do good, but not understanding the full scope of what it meant and thinking that when the oil hits the Gulf Coast, it hits all over. And that's not true. It didn't hit the bayous of Dulac. It didn't come up to our bayous here. There was a lot of education that we had to do with people who were more environmentally concerned. You know, so lots of people come into Dulac and think, oh, oil is bad, you know, we need to shut down this industry completely. And again, that's not how our community works. You know, a lot of our economy relies on that industry.
Bon ouvrage dans les champs de pétrole, faut pas on peut pas, c'est comme, faut qu'on balance les deux. C'est deux qui ont besoin d'être supportés.
Finalement, malgré le désastre que la marée noire a créé pour l'environnement, les effets de cette catastrophe ont été moins néfastes que ce que l'on craignait pour la population Houma. En réalité, malgré qu'elle ait ralenti l'industrie de la pêche, le principal effet de la marée noire a été de fournir du travail pour plusieurs Houma. Par contre, les effets à long terme et le futur de cet incident restent très imprévisibles pour la nation.
My questions, what's going to be the long-term effects of this disaster? Not necessarily that it washed up on our wasteland, our wetlands, but what's going to be the long-term effects?